Hey, welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I get to talk to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our community. What did they do to get started? And what are they doing to stay there? And oh my goodness, here we are. We're already in February 2024, season 5. And I have another special guest today. Today, I'm getting to talk to Kristi Spaethe. She's the founder and CEO of The People Perspective. She's got her certification as a SHRM-CP, a PHR, and I'm sure there's a lot more. She's also the 2024 Oklahoma HR State Director. Kristi, I'm so excited to finally have you on the show. How you doing?
Same, Bruce. I'm excited to finally be here. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
I always like to start the show of kind of reflecting. I met you years ago. I think it was in 2018 when you were the president of TARA, which is the Tulsa Area HR Association. We've gotten to know each other for a long time, but recently we connected at the volunteer leader business meeting at SHRM in DC, and we get to do some events together with Texas SHRM. What'd you think about the volunteer leader business meeting and our joint event in DC?
VLBM is always one of my absolute favorite conferences. Don't tell Sherm because of the networking.
Yeah.
I love getting to be with other people across the country that do what I do as a volunteer leader. I have a special place in my heart for Texas. So it was super cool for us to be able to be in the same room, networking, having a great time with our Texas peers.
Yeah, I love it too because I'm from the great state of Oklahoma, as most people know. And to be able to connect with the Oklahomies is
Uh-huh.
awesome. Before we get into it, I would love for you to share your story. I mean, I've known you for a while, but I'm sure there's some things I don't know. Share the Kristi Spaethe story. Like, where did you grow up? And how in the world did you get into leadership and HR and all things business?
I grew up in Sapulpa, which is a suburb of Tulsa. So about 20 minutes outside of Tulsa. That's where I grew up. I say that I was a non-traditional student. That's a fancy way of saying I got a late start to the college world. So got my degree is in psychology.
Mm.
And one of my HR classes, I had an HR development option as a minor. One of my HR classes, somebody was talking about this really cool company in Tulsa, which was the place to work. Many of us know already it was Quick Trip. So I decided I was going to set my sights on Quick Trip. I graduated, got into the benefits department at the corporate office, and just kind of started my 8-year journey with Quick Trip. Um, Once I left Quick Trip, I started my manufacturing trek across Tulsa. I worked with several different manufacturing companies, all in HR. Love manufacturing. I miss it so much. But in at the beginning of 2018, I started the People Perspective,
Mm.
which was I was decided I was going to focus on kind of the nuts and bolts of HR as a consultant, and saw that there was a real space for that in Tulsa. Right after I started the People Perspective, everybody else saw that there was a special place for HR consulting in Tulsa. I had all these competitors come out of the woodworks, but that was good. It kept me on my toes. The mission of the People Perspective has continued to be all things people. However, our services have grown, so we're not just nuts and bolts compliance, but we also do a lot of leadership training. We do a lot of compliance training. We do some organizational development work. And then at the beginning of 2022, uh, 2 years ago today, I'll have
Mm.
you know, I acquired an existing staffing company in Tulsa that was Switchgear Search and Recruiting. That became People Perspective Search and Recruiting. And so we're 2 years into also offering professional level search and recruiting services.
That's
How's
fantastic.
that?
Wow, there's so much here. First of all, I want to get into more of the people's perspective in your core. But when you said I had loved manufacturing, so you went from something you loved to something you now love. But I mean, it was a big that was a big leap. Like, what
Yeah.
was like? First of all, let me ask you this: what did you love so much about manufacturing, and then what really pushed you into doing your own thing?
I love manufacturing because of the people. I just click with the people that are in manufacturing. I love a good process in
Mm,
all aspects of my
mm,
life.
mm,
And so I loved being able to see things go from raw materials to the final product. That just fascinates me. Still, when we have a new manufacturing client come on, the first thing I want to do is get out on the shop floor and see what they do. I loved it so much. Like many other business owners, I started my business and had no idea what I was doing. I had kind of landed on my feet after a not so great work experience
mm,
and decided that this was definitely something that I needed to give a good go. No idea what I was doing. I spent a year networking. That I feel
mm,
like that's was my job for
mm,
that first year was networking. Very little financial gain,
mm,
but it all paid off. I'm a huge believer in volunteering and networking. That's how we met.
mm.
And it's really helped me in my business.
Yeah, that's very fascinating because we're going to get into that. We're going to talk a little bit about the Oklahoma HR conference coming up and networking, and that's really how I built my business. But I got to tell you, a lot of people struggle with that because there's not a quick return in networking, and it's I always like to say it's the long game.
Mm.
Did you like, was that a thought process from day one? Like, you know what? I'm in it for the long game. I'm going to just sow seeds and not expect anything back for a while. Or what was your like thought process? Because
No.
that's not easy. You're in business, you're trying to make money, and now all of a sudden you're like, hey, I'm going to start networking.
Yeah, that was not my thought process at all. So I went into it thinking, I know a lot of people, and I do know a lot of people in
Yeah.
the Tulsa community. Like you said, 2018, the year that I started my business, was the year that I was the president of the Tulsa Area Human Resources Association.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, that, I'm really well connected, and I was, but there's still, like you said, a long game. I didn't know that. I thought, 6 months in, bless my husband's heart, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And he was like, one more year, try it for one more year. And that really was about a year and a half in was when it just kind of blew up in the
Mm,
best way possible. So I had no idea it was a long game. I had no idea I was going to spend a year being a professional networker. I had no idea how to do the back end process of owning and running a business. I knew how to do HR. And luckily, that's paid off. That's paid off. We have great clients that trust us a whole bunch. But no, it was a slow start, and I didn't think it was going to be that way.
yeah, I've been watching from you afar and really excited to see your success. I'm wondering now that you've been doing this, you said since 2018, you're in your what, fifth year or sixth year. Was it like, has there been a moment where you're like, you know what, I found my lane. This is what I'm going to do. I'm enjoying this. Any thoughts on
Yeah.
that?
I'm so excited to tell you this story because I think it fits you really well. It was about a year and a half in when it was, like I said, blowing up, that I left a training. I had a full week, so I was with clients on site. I was figuring out that training was something that I really enjoyed. And I left that training and I called my mama. So when I have road time, windshield time, I call my mom. I called my mom and I was crying and I said, Mom, this is it. I found it. This is what I am supposed to do with my life. That has morphed and evolved. I
Mm,
don't do as much of the day-to-day work. I'm trying really hard to be the CEO of these two businesses, but still, as it's morphed and changed every step of the way, I know in my core, this is what I was meant to do on this earth. And that is so powerful. And it's
mm,
so powerful because I know a lot of people never find that.
yeah.
And I liked what I did before this, but it wasn't the same. This is what I was meant to do, and that's super cool.
That's fantastic. I love that. I love the part about calling your mom. I found
Mm.
it. I love
Uh-huh.
that. Hey, well, I mean, I always like to talk, about mentors and people that have helped us get to where we are. Any thoughts around that? Anybody that you can think of that has helped you on your journey? And if so, what was it? What was that trait? that helped you so much?
I'm a huge believer in mentorship. And part of that is because early in my career, I didn't have any.
Mm,
I didn't know, I didn't know how to ask. I didn't know how to find them. And
mm,
so I've tried really hard to pay that forward to emerging professionals by educating them on the fact that they can just ask somebody to be their mentor. They can ask somebody to go to lunch with them because I've now had the chance to be mentored and to mentor. And I know that it's a game changer. I'm a big believer in that personal board of directors. I love that
mm,
concept because
mm,
it's a group of mentors, right? You get to have a group of people. And the thought process is it's not just one mentor that's a cheerleader. We all need a cheerleader, maybe two, somebody that says, "You've got it, Kristi, you can do this. I believe in you." But also that community advocate, somebody that's out in the community saying, "Oh gosh, you need to talk to Kristi," or "You need to have lunch with Kristi." I think the most important one is the critic. So
mm,
somebody that is an advocate, is a cheerleader, but will also say, "Hey, I don't think you thought that through all the way,"
mm,
or "This is not a good idea, and here's why," or "You need to go back and revisit that." That to me has been the most powerful. When you get to a certain place in your career and business life, a lot of people find themselves surrounded by people that will say what they want to hear, and I need people around me that will say the hard thing, that will make me take another look. But we all know, we don't all know. If you don't know Heidi Hartman, she's a great person to have in your corner. She served a lot of those roles for me throughout my career, and definitely at the beginning of my business journey. Shelley Academy is somebody she's actually speaking at the OKHR State Conference in April. She's a great advocate for me, and she is a great person besides my mom that will say, "That's hard. That's really
mm,
hard, Christine."
mm,
And
mm.
I need those people in my life too. So those are just a couple of examples of mentors that I've had along the way.
Yeah, and I know you have many. I love that. And I know Heidi, of course, her and her awesome sauce.
Hmm.
I
And her
want
Oklahomies,
to, in
she coined
Oklahoma,
that
that's right.
phrase. Yeah.
I want to ask you though, there's some people listening. There's people taking notes right now. Kristi, I've already got a full page of notes. Okay. I want to ask you this. There's people listening right now saying, you know what, that personal board of directors thing, I've heard that before. I need to get that. How do I do that? Do I just call some people and have a meeting and, hey, let's get around a round table? Or can that be like informal?
Mm.
Like for me, I've got these, 6 or 7 people that are on my list. And from time to time I call and I bounce ideas off of them. And I would call them a personal board of directors as well. What's your thoughts for the listeners? What's a tip around that?
My personal board of directors doesn't know necessarily that they're on my personal board of directors, and they don't know
Mm,
each other, and they don't have to. Mentoring, one of the things that I got out of Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, which it's been a hot second since I read that, but she says in there that you should not go up to people and say, "Will you be my mentor?" And I disagree with that. But the premise behind mentoring doesn't have to be this formal, structured, I've got worksheets that I'm filling out, and we meet once a week or once a month at a conference table, and it doesn't have to be that. My personal board of directors, I call them when I need something. I have mentees that call me when they need something.
mm.
We've been in each other's lives for years, and when something is scary or wrong or good, those are my favorites.
We're good.
They call
That's
me.
important too. Right.
Yes, but I also have people in my life that want to meet with me once a month, and
Mm,
they do want that structure. So it can be structured, it can be
yeah.
formal, it can be informal. What I say is look for people that have what you want.
Mm,
That's a great way to find a mentor. And I saw all of those people when I started my volunteer leadership journey with Tara, Tulsa Area Human Resources Association. I remember looking around the room and thinking, man, she has really got it together. And look at her career. I wonder how she got that. And so you just say, "Can we have lunch?" and take it from there.
yeah. That's fantastic. And by the way, the state director elect is also named Tara Crowley. And when people say Tara, it's always
Uh-huh.
funny when I talk to her. She's like, not the Tara Tulsa area HR.
Yeah.
It's Tara. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's fantastic. I love that. I love all of that. I think the listeners are going to get a lot out of that. Hey, let's talk leadership here. I do like to ask my guests the question when someone says, "Hey, Kristi, what's leadership to you?" How would you respond to that?
Leadership is so many things, so many things. I think of it as influence.
Mm,
Leadership is not necessarily having direct reports. I think it's probably the ability to influence. In my leadership trainings, I talk about that leadership is not always for the better.
mm,
It can all, we've had really effective leaders in history, very effective that were leading for bad, for evil. So if you think about influence, influence isn't necessarily just I will influence you for the better. Sometimes it's for the worse. So a lot of if we've got HR professionals listening, we've maybe dealt with those actively disengaged employees, and those are usually really effective leaders.
mm.
And we wish they weren't because they can really put a negative spin on our workplace culture. So let me take this back to a positive place. Influence. I would also say one of my I think probably my key motivator in life is to have an impact.
Mm.
That's what I want to do is impact my clients, impact my family, impact my employees, impact the community, impact HR professionals. And to me, that's leadership as well.
That's fantastic. I love all of that. Hey, let me ask you this though. Where did that come from? A key motivator. Like that's powerful. I have chills when you said that. Like my you like that's my purpose, that's my mission. I want to make impact. Like where did that come from? Have you always had that?
I think I have in different ways. I think that it's been a journey through my career to realize that I feel really engaged and motivated and successful
Mm,
when I'm having an impact. And that's looked, like I said, a lot of different ways, but it's been a slow journey for me to figure that out. But I don't know, there wasn't a light bulb moment. It's been kind of a slow roll of practicing some self-awareness on, ooh, I feel really good right now. Why do I feel really good right now? Oh, because I just had a big impact and it's recognized.
I love all of that. I know that you spend a lot of time in your leadership role as a CEO, a lot of time. But yet you find time. Of course, you talked earlier about networking, and so we know that's an important part of your role as well. But to go from networking to a volunteer role to now leading the Oklahoma HR State Conference is it's big. It takes a lot of time. Talk about that and how important has that been for you to be a volunteer for Oklahoma HR? And then we're going to get into a little bit of the conference.
Well, my husband calls me a serial volunteer. So I have maybe overcommitted myself at certain times with volunteer work. But I think, Bruce, we can go back to impact, right?
Mm,
This is a huge way that I feel like I can be a part of OKHR impacting the HR professionals across our state. It's again been a journey. My volunteer leader career started with TARA, Tulsa Area Human Resources Association. I had a wonderful CEO, Jeff Greer, that said, "You need to go find your network." It was my first. It was my first Department of One role. He said, "You
mm,
need to go find your network." He was a great CEO. He also encouraged me to get my certification. He paid for it. He let me study at work. He's a great
mm,
man. Anyway, he encouraged me to go find my network. I walked into my first Terra meeting, and many of us that have gone to our first networking meeting I was shaken, I was nervous. And this beautiful woman named Diane Hewitt, who knew me because she was a vendor of mine, she was on the board. She put her arm around me. She literally put her arm around me, took me to her table, introduced me to everybody, roped me into the board on a committee as a committee member of hers. And the rest is history.
mm.
I was on the Terra board until the end of 2019. I had already overlapped and started work with OKHR. We're coming off of the state's volunteer leader summit. So that was last week. And I always tell people the more I do this, the more it's just solidified that these are my people.
Mm.
That bond that we have is so strong. It's so great to be able to go be with people that know your struggles. It's a safe place. They don't judge. We have a great time. HR people have a great time together when we're cutting loose. So that's a huge part of it. I found my people. I found my network, Jeff
Mm.
Greer. I found my vendors. I found my partners. It's so powerful to me, the relationships that I've formed. It has changed my career. It's changed who I am as a person, and I found all these beautiful friendships and relationships through it.
That's so good. And, for me, I always like to also add that it's also helped me see how to go about things, right? You get to see the good, you get to see the not good. And it shapes us as leaders, and you've done a fantastic job. I want to talk about this Oklahoma HR State Conference coming up. It's coming up in April, I believe April the 16th through the 18th in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Man, let's talk about that. Like, why don't we start with how excited are you about your keynotes? Talk about your keynotes coming up, because a lot of times when conferences start announcing, man, they want to get those keynotes out there because they really drive in attendance. Talk a little bit about that.
So our opening keynote is none other than Greg Hawkes.
Greg
Uh,
Hawkes.
right, and Greg
Of,
has been
and by the
around.
way, a former guest
Yeah.
of Life in the Leadership Lane, season one.
Of course he was season one. I made it on season five. Of course, Greg is season one. Greg has been around the Oklahoma volunteer leader world forever, and he has never keynoted our conference. So I am pumped to have him be our opening keynote. That'll be Tuesday at 12-ish to kick off the conference. Wednesday is a gentleman by the name of Javon Glasgow.
Mm.
He spoke at HR Southwest, I believe. And I am so excited about him. And he's excited, which is, contagious. I think that he will be definitely a fresh face for the Oklahoma group, and he'll bring a lot of energy. And then our closing keynote is Jennifer McClure, who many of us know in leadership and HR worlds. She started Disrupt HR. She is a professional keynote speaker, and she's going to close us out on Thursday. So the theme is POW HR. It's more fun to say power. And all of those keynotes will be talking about the power that we hold as HR professionals and how we should use that for good, not evil.
That is a blockbuster. That's the trifecta right there. Greg Hawkes, he's got so many different presentations. I'm not sure what he's going to talk about, but culture is a big thing for him. Javon, yes, he spoke at the HR Southwest. He spoke with Texas SHRM, our leadership, and it's so energizing. And of course, Jennifer McClure started the Disrupt HR. I mean, come on. I mean, when I went my first SHRM, by the way, Kristi, you may not know this, August, or it was Atlanta, Georgia, 2012 or 13. And I was president of Dallas HR. And that was my first session, Jennifer McClure. And I was just like blown away. And I remember the room, it felt like 20,000 people and it was full, where they have the overflow rooms. And anyway, I've
Yes.
got to see her speak many times. She's also a former guest of the show. And oh, that's going to be so fantastic. Hey, well, let me ask you this. I've always talked about this whenever we talk about these conferences, in particular HR conferences, Oklahoma HR State Conference. Is this just for HR, people serving HR, or is this for business leaders? Like, who should think about attending Oklahoma HR State Conference?
So, of course, it is for HR professionals and HR leaders. We have a lot of content, a lot of breakout sessions geared towards that. But we have a lot of sessions that are around general leadership. So, I don't care what you do in a business world. That is what SHRM is about, right? Better workplaces. If you participate in making better workplaces, there's going to be good stuff for you at the conference. We're working really hard to make sure, there's so many small business owners and leaders that wear all the hats, and we've got content for them. I love this, and I hope it resonates, but there's so many HR professionals that didn't mean to be HR professionals.
Mm.
I always say they made eye contact first. So somebody says, who is, and if you make eye contact, you're now in HR. We've got great
You
stuff
get
for
to be
them.
HR.
Yes, yes. And then large business owners and leaders,
Yeah.
CHROs, the C-suite, we have content for all of them. But yes, to answer your question, you don't have to be a dedicated HR professional to get something from our conference.
I think that's important because of course, I got my business degree and I didn't know what relocation was, and I got in the relocation business. And then later I served at, for the SHRM chapter in Dallas, which is Dallas
Mhm.
HR. And I'm focused on being a business leader. And I served some different roles in HR, but at the end of the day, that's what I was trying to figure out is how can I help our business move forward? And that's
Yeah.
what I find is when I go to these conferences, there's so much more than HR. So I'm glad you said that. So if you are in business, this is for you. You're going to take away not just the education, but like you talked earlier, the connections. Like you're just going to meet people that can move you to places you may not even think about. Hey, well, let me ask you this. What else are you excited about? I know you just met with your leadership team. You're on, your planning committee is getting together. Share maybe a couple of things that you're really excited about. People should know this year when you come to the conference. This is what you're going to expect.
So we have a couple of after-hour events lined up. One of them on Tuesday night, I'm so excited about this, a talent show.
Hmm.
So we're inviting all of our conference attendees to bring their special talent, whatever that is. They can do it by themselves. They can put a group together from their chapter. They can put a group together from the company that they work for. We just want people to bring their talent. So I can't wait to hear all the ideas. That registration for that is open now. On Wednesday night, we are doing another pub crawl. So we did that last year and it was a huge success. I would definitely say it was full. All rooms, all bars were full. And we're in downtown Tulsa. So we will be able to take advantage of a lot of the local pubs and bars in that area. And we'll have trolleys and it will be a great time. I'm really excited about that.
I mean, are you kidding me? A talent show? This is going to be fantastic.
I'm so
Oh
excited.
my gosh. I hope this is recorded. And a pub crawl,
Yes.
of course. Hey, you mentioned a pub crawl last year. Last year it was in Oklahoma City. This year
Yep.
it's in Tulsa. Talk about
Yes.
that. Does that go back and forth? And I don't know, do you see more attendance in one or the other? Talk a little bit about why does that go back and forth?
So it does go back and forth each year between the Tulsa area and the Oklahoma City area. Those are our two biggest chapters. So in the state of Oklahoma, so we draw the most attendees from those two locations. But we want to go back and forth because we've got people on the west side of the state that it's a little bit harder for them to get to Tulsa. And we lose some of our attendees from the east side of the state when it's in Oklahoma City. So it's usually a wash. We usually have the same number of attendees,
Hmm.
and we're on a growth trajectory,
Oh,
as I would
good.
like us to be. But when it's in Tulsa, we've got more people from Tulsa that attend. When it's in Oklahoma City, we've got more people from that part of the state that attend. So that's some of that back and forth.
That's fantastic. The Oklahoma HR conference. The theme is power. Is it POWHR?
It sure
Pow.
is.
Er.
And Greg Hawks, if you watch any videos with him, he says power.
If you're
I can't
listening,
do it as good as
Kristi's
he does.
got like her guns up here shooting. Oh my gosh, that is great. I'll have to find that video and put that in the show notes. It's coming up. Oklahoma State HR conference coming up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, April the 16th through the 18th. I'll put the link in the show notes so everybody can get ready for this incredible conference. And of course, let me just throw this out there too. Sponsors are a big, big, big part of these conferences. If somebody's listening and they want to sponsor, can they still do that?
100% will always take your money. So okhr.org is where you can register. You can get information about sponsorships. We have all of our breakout speakers selected. We've got 42 sessions that are
Wow.
potentials for breakout speakers. That all of that information will go out on the website shortly.
Yeah. So I'll put that link in the show notes. Be sure and check that out. This is going to be absolutely incredible. Hey, I did want to ask you a question because you talked about impact earlier. I think I mentioned to you, I'm finishing up my book. It's coming out at it's going to come out at the end of February, the first part of March. And it's around moving your career from success to significance. And so I always like to ask around to you, when somebody said, "Hey, Kristi, what's significance to you in your career?" Like, how would you respond to that?
I think part of this journey, I'm gonna be really vulnerable here, is around what is significance to me. I
Mm.
can't wait to read your book. I think that early on this journey, I looked at winning awards and being recognized that way as success. And I've figured out, probably more recently than I would like to admit, that that's not true success. Significance is the impact that I
Mm.
have in my employees' lives, that I get to work with these beautiful women that take such great care of our clients, that respect what we do, that honor that significance that we play in this tiny piece of the world. Significance is that free job that I have that
Mm.
I don't get paid for with OKHR. We are, I would say, significant in the
Mm.
world of HR in Oklahoma. What we do helps people. We have an impact. And so
Mm.
if that's not significance, I don't know what is.
I love that. All of that. I saw a picture on social media, and I think you had just finished your leadership meeting. And I want to say it was maybe Lacey and Kelly. There may have been some others in there. I can't remember exactly who posted it, but I remember thinking to myself, the joy. I mean, here these people are. They have full-time jobs, but yet they go and they invest more time into helping other people. And when I thought about that, and as you shared that, I think that is what significance is, because a lot of times we think, oh man, we need to be this, we need to be an astronaut or a president or this famous author or whatever the case may be. But yet the significance is in the little, right? It's in the little things we do for people every day. And so I appreciate you sharing that. I, I would agree. I think Oklahoma HR, I serve for Texas SHRM. I think all of these state chapters have this heart for service, and that leads to that significance. That's so good. Oh my gosh. This has been so good. I want to ask you, and I'm going to put all the information in the show notes about the conference so you can learn more about that. I'm going to put the information in the show notes about the people perspective if you want to learn more about Kristi's organization. I do want to ask you this one question before we shift to It's Time to Accelerate. And the question's around advice. And I'd like to pull this out and share this with the world. And so the question is, have you ever been given any advice? It was just so good. You just find yourself sharing it with others.
I know I'm sure that I have. I'm sure that I have been given advice. A lot of the things that have been so impactful in my career have been around feedback. I
Mm.
am a huge believer in feedback and the importance of that. So that's really, I had an executive coach tell me that I was direct to the point of off-putting. That's what he said. And that has really shaped what I set my goals
Mm.
around,
Yeah.
because I don't want to be off-putting. And so I've worked really hard on that. Still struggle with it sometimes, but I've worked really, really hard on that. So that wasn't necessarily advice, but it was really impactful feedback. I think that advice that I have heard is, and it's not necessarily from the world of work, but take the good and leave the rest.
Mm.
So all feedback, if we continue in that vein, is not great feedback, but some of it is, and some of it we really need to take. So, I've been given feedback that I really wrestled with it for months and sometimes years, and I got to the place of, looking at it and going, "Oh, that's dumb.
Mm, mm,
That is not applicable to me." Or I've wrestled with it and thought, "Gosh, that is spot on. I
mm.
I really need to work on that." So I love that. Take the good and leave the rest. But listen, I think listening to what people have to say about you um, is really important.
Mm. Oh my goodness. That is absolutely good. I have a love-hate relationship with feedback, Kristi.
Most people do. I think most people do. I'll be
The
real
most,
honest, Bruce. I'm not
yeah.
usually super pumped for you to tell me that I'm sucking, but if you give me a minute, I can figure it out.
I love this. This has been so much fun. Oh my gosh, we could talk for hours. I told you the time was going to just absolutely fly. I'm going to shift to it's time to accelerate. I got a few fun questions. What is one thing? Here we are in 2024. What's one thing you're looking forward to in the new year?
One? I can only pick one? Well, oh, no, I'll break the rules. I've got a personal and a professional.
Okay.
So one thing that I'm looking forward to personally is it's my 20th wedding anniversary this
What?
year. That's if possible because I'm
Congratulations.
really 25 is the way I
I
feel like I'm still 25.
love
But
that.
yes, we will be married for 20 years this year, and I'm pumped to celebrate that with my husband. Professionally, this is the OKHR director term is 2 years. So this is my last year.
Mm.
And I have very mixed feelings. I'm ready to sail into the night uh, quietly, but I am also so excited that I get one more year to do this. I'm excited about SHRM National. I'm excited about my last VLBM, but I absolutely love the state conference experience. So that is probably something that I'm looking forward to the most on the professional side.
Yeah, time flies. I got to tell you a funny story real quick. So Greg Hawks and I were having your keynote speaker.
Hmm.
We're having breakfast before I was to speak at Terra, the Tulsa Area Human Resource Association, in March of 2020, right before
Oh,
the pandemic. So I go up and I speak, and you're there. And it was fantastic. And I remember us talking about your journey ahead for the state conference director role or director elect, I think at the time. And it was you and Josh, and there were a couple of others. And I just, and now I'm sitting here going, you're talking about getting ready to finish. That's how fast time goes. And that's
yeah,
why I love that because I'm sitting there going, man, time just like flies.
yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, this is so fantastic. Okay. One thing you're most proud of in your career.
I am the most proud of, oh, I'm getting emotional, of this company that
Mm,
I've built with my team. And I'm proud of that because of the work that we do. We
mm.
we have clients that are going through ridiculously hard things, and we get to be a safe space for them. I'm proud that I have a space where, like I said, these amazing women that I employ can come partner with me.
I love that. That's something to be proud of for sure. Okay. Two more questions. What energizes you?
I say I'm an introverted extrovert, and I think that's because I'm old. So I'm an extrovert at heart, but man, I get tired. That's because I'm old. What energizes me, I think, is feeding off of other people. So
Mm,
I am usually really energized after I leave a networking event. I love to
mm.
be with other people and ideate and chat and all of those things.
Isn't that funny how sometimes we, and you've probably had this too, and I know most volunteers have had this, where they're just they're committed for this event, right? Maybe it's a social or luncheon, whatever it is. They're committed, but yet they're just like not feeling it. They're like, man, I'd rather go home right now. I don't want to go to the event, but yet they're committed. So they go to the event and you leave the event so energized. You're like, oh my gosh, I am so glad I went to that. I
Yes.
met so and so, or we had this conversation. It's incredibly energizing. Oh my gosh. Okay. Final question. Kristi Spaethe, 10 years older, is knocking at your door and you're going to go answer that door. What's she going to tell you?
She's probably going to say one word: relax.
Mm,
That's what I can think of right now. I think I know that I get really caught up in wanting to make sure that everything is great and as back to your word, as successful as it can be. And this is, something that I've heard recently is this is a game.
mm,
This is a game, so why not have fun while
mm.
we're playing the game? And I am working on that as a work in progress.
Relax. Relax. I love that. That's a wise 10 years older Kristi Spaethe. Kristi, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your wisdom. I'm going to be posting the Oklahoma HR information. If somebody heard something you shared today and they want to connect with you, Kristi, how's the best way for them to connect?
They can get to me through our website. So pplperspective.com. There's a contact form. That's the best way to get to me.
Perfect. I will put that in the show notes as well, so you can contact Kristi, let her know. Hey, and by the way, if you reach out to her, let her know you heard her on Life and Leadership Lane and maybe something she shared, and that brings an instant connection. I know people are going to get a lot out of the things that you shared today. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you for especially your leadership in Oklahoma HR. I know it's going to be an amazing conference. And most importantly, thank you for your friendship. I appreciate you coming on the show today, Kristi.
Thanks for having me, Bruce. I appreciate your friendship too.
Awesome. I can't wait to share this. I'll talk to you later.